Welcome, basketball fans, to what might just go down as one of the most electrifying, heart-stopping, and fundamentally devastating games of the PBA Season 50 Commissioner's Cup. We are talking about a clash of titans, a battle of sheer will, and a testament to the unpredictable, cruel, and beautiful nature of the sport of basketball. Tonight, we unpack the absolute thriller that took place at the historic Smart Araneda Coliseum, where the NLEX Road Warriors orchestrated a monumental comeback to stun the Brownlee Geneva San Miguel Gin Kings with a final score of 118-113. If you thought you knew how this game was going to end, if you thought you understood the ceiling of Justin Brownlee's greatness, or if you doubted the ice-cold, clutch gene of Robert Bolick, then you were entirely mistaken. This was not just a basketball game. It was a theatrical masterpiece of momentum shifts, tactical brilliance, and individual heroism that left the crowd in absolute awe. Let me paint the picture for you. The atmosphere was thick with anticipation. You have the Brownlee Geneva Gin Kings, the crowd darlings, the team that carries the weight of millions of passionate fans every single time they step onto the hardwood. And leading them, as he has done so many times before, is the resident import, the naturalized Filipino, the absolute legend himself, Justin Brownlee. At 37 years old, some might have whispered that Father Time was catching up, that perhaps the explosive first step was slowing down. But Justin Brownlee took those whispers, crumpled them up, and threw them away with one of the most breathtaking offensive displays we have seen this season. He dropped a staggering, jaw-dropping 46 points. He shot an incredibly efficient 16 of 22 from the field. He pulled down 6 rebounds and dished out 8 assists. By all traditional metrics, by all laws of basketball logic, a performance of this magnitude from a player of Brownlee's caliber should guarantee a resounding victory. It should be the headline, the lead story, the sole focus of the post-game celebrations. He was conducting a masterclass in scoring, dissecting the defense with mid-range pull-ups, powering his way to the rim, and finding his teammates when the double teams finally arrived in desperation. It was vintage Justin Brownlee. It was a kind of performance that reminded everyone why he has statues built in the hearts of the Geneva faithful. And yet, in the cruelest of twists, those 46 points were, in the context of the final buzzer, wasted. They were eclipsed. They were overcome. Because on the other side of the floor stood a team that simply refused to read the script. The NLEX Road Warriors, led by the tactical mind of Coach John Wachiko, staged a rebellion against the inevitable. Down by as much as 13 points, staring into the abyss of a vintage Geneva runaway victory, NLEX dug their heels in. And the man who drove the dagger directly into the hearts of the Brownlee was none other than Robert Bolick. We have known Bolick to be a fiery competitor, a man who relishes the bright lights and the heavy pressure. But what he did in the closing moments of this game transcends regular clutch play. It was cold-blooded execution. Let us zero in on the climax. The very reason we are here. With 4 minutes and 27 seconds left in the fourth quarter, Geneva looked comfortable. They were up 112-106 after a beautiful mid-range jumper by R.J. Barrientos. The crowd was roaring. The momentum seemed securely in the hands of Tim Cohn's squad, and the victory cigars were metaphorically being lit. But basketball is a game of runs, and NLEX initiated a devastating 12-1 run to close the game. The Road Warriors tightened their defensive screws, forced Geneva into uncomfortable possessions, and methodically chipped away at the lead. Katie Lalland, the NLEX import who finished with a monster double-double of 28 points and 14 rebounds, did the heavy lifting inside, battling Brownlee in the Geneva front court with relentless physicality. He hit a crucial hook shot to cut the lead to a single point, 113-112, with just over a minute remaining. Then came the moment that will be replayed on highlight reels for years to come. With 46.1 seconds remaining on the clock, NLEX had the ball. The tension in the Araneda Coliseum was palpable. You could cut it with a knife. The defense was scrambling. The crowd was on its feet, and the ball found its way to Robert Bolick. He found himself isolated, sized up against R.J. Barrientos. The paint was crowded. The driving lanes were clogged. In that split second, Bolick processed the floor, trusted the countless hours of empty gym repetitions, and pulled the trigger on a contested three-pointer from the top of the key. Swish! The net barely moved. The Road Warriors took a 115-113 lead. It was a shot born of supreme confidence, a shot that completely shifted the gravitational pull of the arena. Ginebra, shell-shocked, could not recover. Barrientos missed a tying attempt on the other end, and Bolick was sent to the free-throw line, where he calmly sank his shots to ice the game, scoring Lex's final 6 points and finishing with phenomenal 32 points, 7 assists, and 4 rebounds. This is why we watch the game. This is the drama, the ecstasy, and the agony of professional basketball. Justin Brownlee achieves individual perfection, but Robert Bolick and the resilient NLEX Road Warriors steal the ultimate prize. It is a story of a monumental comeback, a testament to preparation, and a brutal reminder that in the PBA, no lead is ever truly safe until final horn sounds. Today, we are going to break down exactly how this happened. We will dissect the tactical adjustments made by Coach Chico, analyze the anatomy of Bolick's game winner, and explore what this heartbreaking loss means for Justin Brownlee and the Ginebra franchise moving forward. Strap in, because this is going to be a deep, comprehensive dive into a modern PBA classic. To truly understand the magnitude of this 118-113 NLEX victory over Brownlee Ginebra, we have to look beyond the final box score and dissect the tactical ebbs and flows that define these 48 minutes of basketball. This was a chess match played at 100 miles an hour, featuring two completely different philosophies clashing under the brightest lights of the Commissioner's Cup. Let's start by analyzing the absolute masterclass put on by Justin Brownlee. Scoring 46 points on 16 of 22 shooting is an exhibition of unprecedented offensive efficiency. We are talking about a staggering 72% shooting from the floor for a perimeter-oriented player who is constantly the focal point of the opposing defense. Brownlee was not simply cherry-picking transition layups. He was operating in the half-court, diagnosing the NLEX defensive schemes, and finding his spots with surgical precision. Coach Tim Cohn's offensive sets were designed to get Brownlee the ball in the preferred zones, the elbows, the mid-post, and moving off screens at the top of the perimeter. What makes Brownlee so unguardable even at 37 years of age is his incredible balance and footwork. NLEX threw multiple defenders at him. They tried smaller, quicker guards to deny him the ball. They tried bigger, longer forwards to contest his vision. Nothing worked. Brownlee's shot selection was impeccable. He took what the defense gave him, utilizing his lethal pull-up jumper when the defender sagged, and using his strong frame to absorb contact and finish at the rim when they pressed up. Furthermore, his 8 assists indicate that he was not suffering from tunnel vision when NLEX committed hard double teams. Particularly in the third quarter, when Ginebra built their 13-point lead, Brownlee made the right reads, kicking the ball out to open shooters like R.J. Barrientos and Japadavlar, who both finished with respectable 14 points. However, the narrative of this game shifted drastically because of how NLEX handled adversity. Let's talk about the coaching adjustments by John Chico. Down by 13 points, it is incredibly easy for a team to fracture, especially against a crowd favorite like Ginebra, where the opposing fans' energy can feel like an avalanche. But Chico maintained composure. The first major adjustment was the defensive assignment on the perimeter. LJY Gonzalez, who chipped in a vital 14 points, played a massive role defensively. Gonzalez was tasked with hounding the Ginebra backcourt, disrupting their entry passes, and making the offensive initiation uncomfortable. He finished with an astounding plus 23 in efficiency, a quiet but utterly essential metric that proves his impact on the floor. Then we have the battle of the imports. While Brownlee was setting the scoreboard on fire, Katie Lalland was doing the gritty, exhausting labor in the trenches. Lalland's 28 points and 14 rebounds were not just statistical filler. They were timely, momentum-halting buckets. Lalland has a history with Brownlee. The two actually suited up together for the Morocco Bolts in the East Asia Super League. They know each other's tendencies intimately. Lalland used his size advantage expertly, establishing deep post position and presenting a massive target for his guards. His presence forced Ginebra to collapse their defense inward, which in turn slowly opened up a perimeter for the NLEX shooters. Lalland's inside presence was a steady drumbeat that kept NLEX alive while Ginebra was seemingly pulling away. Now we must address the collapse. How does a Tim Cohn coach team, armed with a 13-point lead and an import shooting over 70%, lose a basketball game? The answer lies in the fourth quarter execution and the psychological weight of momentum. Geneva led 112 to 106 with just under 4.5 minutes to play. In the modern PBA, a 6-point lead is practically a one-possession game, but Geneva's offense suddenly stagnated. The ball movement that had generated so many wide-open looks earlier in the game ground to a halt. They began to rely too heavily on isolation plays, draining the shot clock and forcing contested, low-percentage shots. The NLEX defense, sensing the hesitation, ramped up the pressure. They aggressively closed out on shooters, forcing Geneva to put the ball on the floor. This offensive drought by Geneva perfectly coincided with the awakening of Bolick. Bolick is a fascinating player to study. He possesses a unique blend of flair, bravado, and fundamental soundness. Throughout the first 3 quarters, Bolick was steadily accumulating his numbers. He scored 11 points in the third quarter alone to keep NLEX within striking distance. But the fourth quarter is where Bolick transitions from a very good player to a deadly closer. The anatomy of the 12-1 run by NLEX is a masterclass in crunch-time basketball. It wasn't born of chaotic fast breaks. It was methodical half-court execution. Let us break down the game-winning possession. NLEX trails 113 to 112. The shot clock is winding down. The Geneva defense has collapsed into paint. Acutely aware of Lalanne's interior threat and determined not to give up an easy layup, Bolick received the ball at the top of the arc. He isolates R.J. Barrientos. In this specific moment, the entire arena knows Bolick is going to take the shot. Where Chico knows it, Tim Cohn knows it, and Barrientos knows it. Bolick surveys the packed paint. He realizes that a drive would likely result in a turnover or a highly contested shot over multiple helpers. So he falls back on his preparation. He takes a hard dribble, creates a fraction of an inch of separation, and elevates. The mechanics of the shot were flawless. Perfect balance, high release point, unshakable confidence. When that ball snapped through the net, it didn't just give NLEX the lead. It broke the psychological resolve of the Geneva squad. Bolick's post-game comments were incredibly telling. He stated, in a matter-of-fact tone, that if he missed a shot, he would take the blame. He noted that he practices that exact scenario, that exact shot, every single day in training. That level of supreme accountability and relentless preparation is what separates good scorers from great closers. He didn't shy away from the moment. He demanded it. Following that three-pointer, Geneva's offensive set broke down. Barrientos missed, and Bolick calmly walked the free-throw line to seal the deal, scoring the final 6 points of the game for his team. This game also highlights the incredible contribution of the NLEX supporting cast. Shawnee Winston was an absolute revelation, pouring in 21 points and providing a secondary scoring punch that relieved the pressure off Bolick and Lalanne. Winston's ability to slash to the basket and hit timely jumpers kept the Geneva defense honest. It was, as Coach Chico described it, a collective effort. They didn't fumble on offense or defense in the dying minutes. They displayed a level of championship-tier composure that is incredibly difficult to maintain when a player like Justin Brownlee is having a career night on the opposing side. For Geneva, this film session is going to be brutal. Tim Cohn is a perfectionist, and reviewing the final 4 minutes where a 112 to 106 lead evaporated will yield harsh lessons. The lack of defensive rebounding down the stretch, the stagnant offensive execution, and the inability to force the ball out of Robert Bolick's hands will be major points of contention. Japeth Aguilar and Stephen Holt had their moments, but when the pressure reached its absolute peak, the collective execution faltered. Brownlee was magnificent, but a 46-point masterpiece requires a properly primed canvas to become a victory, and the Gen Kings simply could not hold the frame together in the final moments. As we wrap up this extensive look into an absolute instant classic, we have to take a step back and appreciate what this game means for the broader landscape of the PBA Season 50 Commissioner's Cup. The NLEX Road Warriors' 118 to 113 victory over Burundi Geneva Gen Kings is not just a notch in the win column. It is a statement of intent. It is a loud, resounding message to the rest of the league that NLEX possesses the mental fortitude, the tactical flexibility, and the absolute sheer star power required to compete for a championship. For NLEX, moving to a 3-1 record, this game serves as the ultimate momentum builder. Coach John with Chico mentioned hoping that this game gets them to the next level, and it is easy to see why. When a team proves to itself that it can absorb the absolute best punch from a legendary player like Justin Brownlee, weathering a 46-point storm and a 13-point deficit, and still execute with ice-cold precision in the final minute, that builds an unbreakable locker room culture. Robert Bolick has firmly cemented his status as one of the premier closers in Philippine basketball. His 32-point performance, capped off by that unforgettable, game-winning triple, is the stuff of legend. It validates the countless hours in the empty gym, and it sets a standard of accountability and fearlessness for his teammates. With Katie Lalland dominating the paint, Shawnee Winston providing explosive scoring, and LJY Gonzalez locking down the perimeter, the Road Warriors have formulated a remarkably balanced and lethal rotation. They look dangerous, they look poised, and they look entirely unafraid of the big moments. On the other side of the ledger, the Barongi Geneva Gin Kings fall to a 1-1 record. There will be no panic in the camp of Tim Cone. Of course, this is a franchise built on resilience and characterized by their never say die mantra. But this loss will undoubtedly sting. It is a bitter pill to swallow when your resident superhero, Justin Brownlee, delivers a vintage, flawless offensive masterclass, and you still walk away empty-handed. Brownlee's graciousness in defeat, crediting the NLEX defense and acknowledging the brilliance of Lalland and Bolick, speaks volumes about his character and leadership. He remains the ultimate professional. However, the Gin Kings will need to take a long, hard look at their late-game execution. The complete offensive stagnation in the final 4 minutes, the over-reliance on isolation, and the defensive lapses that allowed an opponent to close the game on a 12-1 run are issues that must be addressed immediately. The supporting cast, while solid for 3 quarters, needs to find ways to actively impact the game when the defensive pressure reaches its boiling point. Ultimately, this game was a brilliant showcase of why we dedicate our time, our energy, and our emotions to this beautiful sport. It reminded us that basketball is not played on spreadsheets and that no outcome is predetermined by individual brilliance alone. It takes collective grit, strategic adjustments, and sometimes a little bit of magic from a player willing to take the shot that everyone else is afraid to miss. Robert Bolick took that shot tonight. Justin Brownlee gave us a performance for the ages. And we, the fans, were the ultimate winners, treated the spectacle of competition at its absolute highest level. Thank you for joining me on this incredibly deep dive into tonight's game.